All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is 1:03 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. If Secretary Armijo can take roll.
Good morning or good afternoon. All righty, Secretary Armijo is here. Chair Burt,
Here.
Commissioner Carrillo,
Here.
Commissioner Chavez,
Here.
Commissioner Davis, Commissioner Gibson,
Here.
Commissioner Manus,
Here.
Commissioner Robbins,
Here.
Commissioner Taylor,
Here.
Vice Chair Voigt.
Here.
We have a quorum of 9.
Thank you. And if I could ask Commissioner Manus to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and Commissioner Carrillo in the salute to the New Mexico flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
All right, next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda, and I would like to remove item number 6. That item has been resolved as of this time and does not need to be on the agenda for today. So I will move to approve the agenda with the removal of item 6.
I'll second.
Thank you. Ms. Barnes?
I think we need to remove the transcript from the consent agenda.
So I will do that when we get to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chair,
All right. Commissioner Carrillo?
I've not been able to get on my email now for a while, so honestly, I don't even know what item 6 is. Can you tell me what I'm removing?
Item number 6 was discussion and possible action to grant a temporary cap increase for one student for Mission Achievement and Success Charter School.
All right, thank you.
All right, seeing no other comments, Secretary Armijo, if you could call roll.
Thank you. Chair Burt,
Yes.
Commissioner Carrillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson,
Yes.
Commissioner Manus,
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
Vice Chair Voigt,
Yes.
and Secretary Armijo votes yes. That is 9 to 0 that the agenda has been approved.
All right, thank you. That will next take us to open forum. Missy, were there any folks signed up to speak today? All right, thank you. And then the next one will bring us to item number 4, which is the consent agenda. I'm going to remove item B, approval of the PEC transcript for October 21st, 2022, which leaves just the approval of the work session minutes. Commissioner Robbins?
Can someone send me a current copy, because I got like 4 or 5 different versions of the agenda, and the only one that had an agenda item 6 was the adjourn. So I don't know if, and even on the Google Drive, I don't see apparently the most current agenda.
Director Chavez, could you send, do I see her on here? I do not see. Julia, you will? Okay. I do have, so just so you all know what I'm looking at is, I'm looking in the PEC Google Drive, and then there's a folder 1A, the November 7th work session. And in there, there is a PDF and Word doc version of the final agenda for today. So I'm going to give 1 second just to make sure everyone is on the same page here before I move on.
I have it. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so I will move for approval of the consent agenda with, for item A, approval of the work session minutes for October 20th, 2022.
I'll second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Secretary Mijo?
All righty. Excuse me, Commissioner Carrillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson,
Yes.
Commissioner Manus,
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes,
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
Vice Chair Voigt,
Yes.
Secretary Mijo votes yes, and Chair Burt.
Yes.
That motion is passed 9-0.
Thank you. And that will take us to item B. So this is the approval of the PEC transcript for October 21st, 2022. There was an error in it that we do need to have read into the record. And if you'll give me 1 second, I'm pulling it up real quick so I can do that. All right. So there's a correction to page 294 of the meeting transcript for October 21st, 2022. It should say, I move that the chair of the Public Education Commission send a letter to La Tierra Montessori School for the Arts and Sciences, remove verbatim, of the PEC's intent to take further action under the intervention ladder due to the following concerns: lack of evidence of implementation of school-specific goals, completion of a scoring protocol for those school-specific goals, and implementation of the educational program, and any non-compliance with the expected outcomes and deadline. So I will move to approve the transcript as amended.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Any questions or comments from commissioners? All right, Secretary Mijo.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson,
Yes.
Commissioner Manus,
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins,
yes,
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
Vice Chair Voigt,
Yes.
Secretary Mijo votes yes, Chair Burt,
Yes.
and Commissioner Carrillo.
Yes.
That is passed 9-0.
All right, that leaves us for now. Our only item on our agenda for this meeting is discussion and possible action on contract and performance framework for Explore Academy Rio Rancho. I don't know if it's Director Chavez first or Ms. Barnes first. Ms. Barnes.
Thank you. There was a subcommittee that met and negotiated a contract with Explore Academy Rio Rancho. The 2 documents are in the drive. If you look in the drive, there is a PEC meeting folder to the left. That's where the documents are. There is the Explore Academy Rio Rancho contract that has already been approved by their board, and the performance frameworks right after that. The final 2 documents are the certification from Explore that their board has done that. I had emailed the subcommittee, and I just want to highlight that Explore Academy made 2 changes to the contract that I think are clarifications, but they are different from the document that came out from there. The first one is on page 7. The contract language itself says that the educational program has to indicate if students of various ages and proficiencies can be mixed in a classroom, and that has always been in the Explore Academy documentation. So they just added that in there and they fixed a typo. I emailed those subcommittee commissioners this morning. Again, I don't see that as anything but a good clarification. And I'm happy to answer any other contracts, but I think it's more appropriate for the commissioners and Director Chavez to talk about that. But I am happy to go over anything in the contract and how the language ended up.
Yeah, so we followed a process very similar to the spring when we were negotiating with the renewal schools in the spring. And one of the changes we did make this time is, while we provided the option for schools to move to a new performance framework should one be approved and adopted, we have switched it to that this school is required to move to the new contract and performance framework should it be ready and approved by, I think, early spring next year. And they agreed to that would be something they're willing to do. So that's one of the only differences that we did with this one versus the ones in the spring. But there are the 2 mission specific goals, and the education program was negotiated. So I think if any commissioners have any questions about this, I'm happy to call on you for questions. We do have, there's also, I saw in the attendees there, it looks like there may be a representative from Explore Academy. So if there's any questions for the school itself, I think we can bring them on as well if we need to. Any questions or comments from commissioners or anybody on the negotiating committee that would like to say anything at this time? All right. All right. All right, so I move that the Public Education Commission adopt the charter contract and performance framework for Explore Academy Rio Rancho, identified as documents 5A and B for the 2022 to 2028 charter term, including the planning year. I further move that the contract be signed by the chair and complete contract packet be sent to the charter school division.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and second. If there's any other comments. All right, seeing none, Secretary Armijo.
Commissioner Gibson,
Yes.
Commissioner Manus,
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
Vice Chair Voigt,
Yes.
Secretary Armijo votes yes, Chair Burt,
Yes.
Commissioner Carrillo,
Yes.
and Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
That passes 9 to 0.
Thank you. With that being completed, I will move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Secretary Armijo, if you could call roll.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
Vice Chair Voigt,
Yes.
Secretary Armijo votes yes. Chair Burt,
Yes.
Commissioner Carrillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Manus.
Yes.
That passes 9 to 0.
All right. And so we are adjourned. So we will move into our work session now. We have 2 items on the work session today. The first one is PEC member and CSD input to chair on possible issues to identify for renewing schools. So first, Julia, if you can just give an overview of the process and what we're doing at the end of today. And then Director Chavez, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can talk to us about those preliminary recommendations that you sent out.
So this is a process that we have already done once for actually Explore Academy Rio Rancho, which is for the PEC to provide notice to the school of items, not necessarily only concerns or anything that you would like them to be prepared to address at the renewal hearings. It is done in a working session because there are no discussions of the preliminary analyses, but rather if there's anything else, we have already gone through and pulled from CSD's preliminary analysis any concerns that they have outlined. Those are already in the letter. You don't need to raise them. We have raised them based on that, but it's whether you have anything else for any of those renewing schools that you would like added to the letter. The letter will go out, I'm anticipating tomorrow by Chair Burt, by email to each of the renewing schools, but it's so that they have notice and an opportunity to be ready for your hearing.
All right, and Director Chavez, I don't know if you want to just kind of talk about the process that you've used so far and what's next for you all as well after this.
Yes, good afternoon, commissioners. So basically you should have in your inbox as a separate email, the preliminary renewal analyses that were sent to each governing body chair and head administrator of the 7 schools that are up for renewal. One school's preliminary analysis needed to be revised when we realized we had used the wrong version of the renewal analysis. And so that was corrected the day after you received that. I also sent you an email with a link to the folder that has all of the preliminary analyses and a link to where you can find the renewal applications on your web page. We did our best to follow the structure of the renewal application and gave ratings to each of the indicators that it called for, and to provide a rich narrative to you about the school itself, what we've read about in the renewal application, what we were able to verify through our on-site visit by holding focus groups, classroom observations, school observations, and reviewing documents while on site. This is considered a preliminary renewal analysis because it has all of the information that we are able to provide at this point. Additional academic data is forthcoming, which we hope, in addition to any issues that you raise and any feedback that we hear back from the school, would be incorporated into a final renewal analysis. For example, I have already heard back from one of the school leaders who in fact had submitted a report that the report that we wrote said they had not. They were able to provide evidence to us, and I was able to verify at the PED side that the school actually had provided that report. So that will be changed in the final report. And I can tell you specifically which school that is and which report I'm referencing should you want that information immediately. Otherwise, I think that the reports speak for themselves.
Great. So I think at this time, what we'll do is we'll go school by school. So I'll start at, the top of our folder and kind of go down. And if you have any additional concerns, so once again, if they did not get a meets, then that will be listed as a potential concern that the school will have the ability to address during their renewal hearing. And if it's something that is not on the CSD preliminary analysis, then please, speak up at this time and we'll include it in the letter to the school as well. All right, so the first school we're going to be discussing is Albuquerque Collegiate. So once again, anything that's not a meets will be already designated in this letter. Are there any other concerns commissioners have in reviewing this information that could lead to a possible condition or non-renewal? Commissioner Gibson.
And I don't know if it raises to the level of a non-renewal, but I'd like to raise a concern as to why their kindergarten enrollment dropped almost by half this current school year, which seems possibly problematic. So would just like a little answer about what might be going on.
Great, we will make sure to add that to, we will make sure to add that on. Anything else for Albuquerque Collegiate? Okay. All right, the next school on our list is Altura Preparatory. Any additional concerns for Altura Prep School? I would like to add on to here, Julia, just about the recruitment efforts to getting a diverse, more a diverse background of students that are coming to their school. Just to, I'm wondering what they're actively doing to promote diverse applicants to their school. Commissioner Gibson?
Yeah, I was going to ask that, and also I'm wondering if their drop in kindergarten enrollment has anything to do with that move, because they had a fairly significant drop in their kindergarten enrollment this year. So, you know, that is a concern we addressed when they moved. So I'd like the and continued conversation about what they're doing, since they've moved out of the district of Albuquerque that they promised that they were going to serve.
Commissioner Taylor?
So just real quickly, I'm sorry, I wanted to go back to Albuquerque Collegiate and just say that, you know, make an observation that their current enrollment is at 147 and their approved enrollment is 360. So I don't know if that's an issue or not, but it may be indicative of what's going on in the school. I mean, is that an issue that we raise, or is it just, it's just the way it is?
We'll include that as a question that they can be prepared to talk about when they come.
Sure, okay.
Commissioner Gibson?
So can I just say, could it be that because they're not completely built out yet? I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, and I think it's
Rita
okay.
could probably answer that real quick.
Well, I think we can ask any question. We don't have to get an answer today about it, and the school can just be ready to respond to it when they come for their hearing. All right, so I'm back to Altura Prep. If there's any other questions on Altura Preparatory School, charter school. Okay, great. We're going to move on to, we have next Cottonwood Classical Preparatory School. This is one of the only school this year that will be applying to the PEC, is coming from a district school. Any questions to ask this school in addition to what CSD has already provided? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to Horizon Academy West. Commissioner Taylor?
Yeah, I just noticed in there that they have no mission specific goals. And it'd be nice for that for them to have some mission specific goals. There were none listed on the preliminary review.
Yeah, so back these schools were given the option to do it at this time. They're right now, mission goals are no longer optional for future contracts.
So that will be something they'll address it. Okay, all right.
Anything for Horizon Academy West to add to the charter schools division analysis? Okay. The next is New Mexico Academy for the Media Arts. Any questions or additional?
We should have Ho-Show.
So they're at the bottom of my list for some reason. I'm just going in order on the Google Drive.
I thought we were doing alphabetical, sorry.
Oh, it did look like it was mostly alphabetical, except for that one. But
Okay.
for some reason, I didn't even pay attention, Commissioner Gibson, but it's at the bottom of my, oh, I think it's because it's revised. It says revised, and so it alphabetically, it put it down to the bottom. So yeah, we'll go to that. That'll be the last one. All right. New Mexico Academy for the Media Arts. Any additional questions or concerns that are not addressed by the CSD analysis? Okay, great. New Mexico Connections Academy. Commissioner Taylor?
So New Mexico, I know this is fairly well spelled out, but I just really want them to come prepared to discuss proficiency rates and the methods by which they're going to try to improve those. Also, I think that we they need to have a method by which to corroborate who is online with them during class. We've talked about that. Commissioner Carrillo and others have mentioned that, you know, without a face in front of the screen. So I'd like them to kind of come with some ideas on how they can accomplish that. Just confirming that they're who they're dealing with online.
Thank you. Commissioner Gibson?
Yeah, I'll second the request for clarification on what the requirements are and how they track student participation during lessons. Also, I would like to see how the school modifies their curriculum. I believe they purchased the curriculum from Pearson's, and I don't have a good sense of whether they do make modifications and or how they make those modifications to meet New Mexico standards, especially the new social studies standards. So I'd appreciate that. I'd also like some clarification as to exactly what kind of services Pearson provides for the school. It's really not that clear. So I'd like to see what they contract with Pearson's for. And if anyone on Pearson serves on their governance council.
Thank you. Commissioner Robbins?
Perhaps given their low scores on proficiencies and everything, if they could pull together growth numbers, you know, how much are students from the time they start with connections year over year, how much are they growing? Are they growing at least one full or really more than one full academic year over year? Because, you know, if a student comes in to 8th grade, let's say, and they're really reading and their math skills are really at, say, a 5th grade level, well, I would expect them to be very low in reading and math proficiency. However, if they've been there for 4 or 5 years and they're still only at 40%, you know, reading or math proficiency, that is a concern. So can they look at or present data on student growth year over year?
I know that graduation rate was a part of the CISD analysis. But I would like to ask a question of how what they have done to improve their abysmal graduation rates. You don't have to put that in there, but what have they done to engage high school students in order to improve graduation rates? All right, Commissioner Carrillo, then Chavez, then Taylor.
There we go. I just really wanted to echo what Commissioner Taylor was saying. My big concern is whether the policy is or not that they have to be on screen, and if they are, how it's tracked and everything else. I just have little confidence in some of the virtual schools in handling that. And then obviously looking at growth, as Commissioner Robbins said.
Commissioner Chavez.
I just want to echo what you said, Chair Burt, about the graduation. I'd like to hear a little bit more about their plan to increase the graduation rates that are very, very low. But the other is I'd like to hear some more as far as improvements for the EL population and the state testing participation rates for them. And what are they doing to address those and make sure that they're servicing our Ls as, you know, as far as equity.
Thank you. Commissioner Taylor.
So a question I had about graduation rates was, so if a student is in high school and they attend their sophomore and junior year, and then they get acclimated to another school and move to another school, if that student graduates, is that part, I mean, are they considered a graduate, or is that, I mean, do we track those kids after?
Yeah, Director Chavez, if you want to give us a graduation rate tutorial.
So basically, New Mexico has a shared graduation rate formula whereby a student who attends one high school and moves over to the next high school and perhaps even goes to a third, all share in the proportional rating for that particular student. So whether they graduate from that school or not, if they attended during high school, it is reflected in their rate.
Commissioner Gibson.
Yeah, to add on, I would just like the school to talk a little bit about the reliability of their short cycle assessments that they do conduct, how they actually do them. So is a student actually proctored live while they're taking those tests? And that helps to me to speak to a little bit of the reliability of the data that they're providing for us.
I think that's a great question. Commissioner Chavez, I think you just didn't put your hand down from earlier, but I just want to make sure I'm not ignoring you. I don't think I'm ignoring him. Okay. All right. Anything else for New Mexico Connections Academy? Okay. And that brings us to, the last one now is Hozo Academy. Any additional questions or concerns? Commissioner Gibson.
Yeah, I'd like the school to talk a little bit about, they mentioned that they will modify the social studies curriculum, or Hillsdale will modify the social studies curriculum for them, but that should have already been done. So they're still waiting. So they haven't implemented the new social studies standards. And I have a concern that an entity outside of New Mexico is modifying those social studies standards. So I'd like the school to broaden that conversation a little bit about what Hillsdale is providing for them in terms of their curriculum. And well, I think the director covered it enough with the concerns over the mission change without, so I think that's covered.
Commissioner Chavez, do you have something for Hozo? Okay. All right, anything else for Hozo Academy? I don't know, I would say it's like in here, and I know it's been revised, but I definitely want more information about the tribal consultation and how that's working out and what's going on. More information about it. All right, anything else for now? All right. All right, seeing no other comments, we'll add those to the CSD analysis, and we will send those out to the schools. They'll be able to provide responses written. They'll be able to respond at their hearing as well. So that'll do. All right, that brings us to the final item of our agenda, which is the presentation and discussion of the new draft of the academic performance framework. So I'm going to ask Commissioner Voigt to go ahead and give an update on the process in general, just what's happening, and then give an overview of the entire draft of the academic performance framework. And then she's going to go back up and we'll go section by section after that. So I'm not going to call on anybody until after she's gone through the entire draft. And once again, this is just the academic part. Organizational financials coming next. So this is the academic part of the performance framework. She's going to go through the whole thing, and then we'll go back up to the top and go section by section, and I'll call on folks. And we need massive input. So also, even folks who are attendees today, if you have something to say, you're more than welcome to raise your digital hand and we'll call on you as well. But commissioners, we're very much looking forward to your input into this draft. That being said, Vice Chair Voigt, it's all yours.
Okay, thanks. And I'm having some spotty internet, so hopefully I won't lose anyone. But what I'll do is I'll turn my camera off and I'll share screen of the document. So let me do that. And I'm going to share the doc. See if this works. Oh, God.
I don't know if it'll be annoying for you, Vice Chair Voigt, but I could share my screen if you want, and then you could talk through it. I know you'd have to like tell me scroll up and down, but I don't know if that would be helpful to you to have someone else do
that. Yeah, because when I went in to share, it was asking me to list everybody I wanted to share it with. So that
Okay.
was
Yeah,
okay.
I'll go ahead and do that.
Super. So this is draft 8. And I feel that we have really made good progress. We've even gotten down to putting in metrics and measurements into the different performance indicators. So I'll start at the top, and everyone has had this in their folder. So hopefully you've perused it by now. And then Becca, if you can make that a little bigger, that would be great. And I really want to recognize and thank Naomi Rubin DeVoe with the National Charter Institute, who's been facilitating for us since I believe March. and really gotten us to this point. So this introduction really helps highlight and explain the lens that we're looking at the framework through, which is the results-based accountability. And we talked about this the last time we looked at the framework. So, this is how we are looking at the framework, and this is what we want schools to utilize when they're asking themselves how they're doing, is the RBA model. And so going down to how this framework is used, it's pretty straightforward. We put in the statutory renewal requirements to
And
help. Go ahead, Karina.
yeah, Commissioner Voigt, commissioners, I recognize that there is an error here, that the first two paragraph or the first two statements after statutory renewal requirements is a repeat. So that will get cleaned up.
Okay, super. Thanks, Karina. I would have seen that. I definitely would have seen that. And that's for the benefit of the schools to know what they are legally responsible for. And that goes through the next page. And then here in part one, this is the review process. And these are the two big categories that comprise the academic performance framework. And those are the state accountability indicators and the school-specific educational measures. The criteria by which they will be evaluated are the meets or exceeds success criteria, working to meet success criteria, or that does not meet success criteria. And we delineated most recently what determines the meets, exceeds, working to meet, does not meet, and how that weighs into the school being on track for renewal without conditions, or on track with conditions, or not on track for renewal at all. So to dive into this, the state accountability measures are pretty much already given. Those are non-negotiables, and those are set federally. So the school has choices within this framework. They have choices for multiple measures. And this is not just New Mexico and not just our project team that are creating multiple measures, but it's a national movement, and was presented on extensively at the NACSA conference in Minneapolis. Was that 2 weeks ago? How multiple measures are coming in for schools to be measured, not just by narrow parameters, but by broader ways of looking at school quality. So for us, we have the state accountability system with option one, which is a default option that looks exclusively at the state assessment and the state measures. And you'll see that we've put in the green, yellow, and reds, the metrics for meets, exceeds, working to meet, and does not meet. So take a look at those, and then we can come back to discuss if there's any questions about any of this. And then option two for schools is what is drafted in their charter contract. So they would be utilizing the state accountability system from option one and a supplemental proficiency and growth measurement that is PED and approved and nationally normed. And then those are the metrics, the green, yellow, and red. Okay. And then the third option is what is drafted in the charter contract itself. And the state accountability system is replaced with PED approved performance, PED performance system using nationally normed assessments. Uh-oh. Did it go away? I lost, oh, there it is.
Yeah, it kicked me out for a second. I'm back.
Okay, that was quick. So, or under special circumstances, a PEC approved assessments that's nationally normed and agreed in the school's charter contract. So the important piece here is that it has to be something that is standardized or nationally normed, not something that's measured by clouds and rainbows and sunsets. It's got to be something that's legitimate, relevant, rigorous, and has fidelity and substance behind it. And then to the right, we have the metrics for the meets, exceeds, working to meet, does not meet. And you'll notice that the green for the meets, exceeds, the 70% is a little higher than the other two options. Okay, outcomes for special student groups. Lots of discussion on our team about special student groups, but I feel really good about where we landed in identifying the student groups and looking at equity as the big lens for these students. And I'll just let you read through this. It's pretty self-explanatory. And also pay attention to the N size, the student group number needs to be identified with at least 20 students. Okay, and then option 2 will be what is drafted in the charter contract, utilizing the state accountability system and supplemental proficiency and growth data for special student groups. And again, this would be PED approved and nationally normed assessments, or with special circumstances, PEC approved rationale or nationally normed assessments agreed to in the school's charter contract. And then the metrics to the right, you'll see it's at least 70% to meet or exceed. So there's a lot of flexibility for the school to really show what is working for them and how their students are being successful. And it could be in pockets of different areas. Okay, and then down to option 3, what is drafted in the charter contract. Again, the school could choose for their special student groups is to replace their accountability system with a PED approved performance system. Again, it has to be nationally normed and or under special circumstances with PEC approval. And the assessments, and it's agreed to in their charter contract. So again, the meets or exceeds is high, it's at 70%. And again, the student population group has to be at least 20 students. Okay. What else do we have? Okay, mission goal. Okay, mission implementation through the ED program. This, I believe, was pretty much set as far as mission specific goals, and then utilizing whether a school, we've done this before, whether the school has met their mission goal or not met their mission goal. But what we've added is the narrative around the results-based accountability model. And rather than having the examples that are bulleted down there, rather than having those all embedded into the educational plan or educational program, for the school to be able to highlight those within their mission goal or within their supporting narrative. And the fidelity of the educational program. We are looking for the school to show evidence that they are implementing their ed program with fidelity. As they describe in their contract. And those are the metrics for the meets, exceeds, working to meet, does not meet. So you'll see the green is all of the elements. The yellow is one or more are not fully being implemented. And then the red is one or more of their elements are not being implemented. And then learning culture. We're looking for student matriculation and equity within a lottery system, although that's not spelled out, but it's kind of highlighted here within the metrics. We're looking for at least 85% of students to re-enroll every year. And then less than 65% would be does not meet. And is that it? Okay, so I know that's a lot to unpack, but we can stand for questions. Project team, we're Patty, Becca, Karina, if there's anything else you'd like to add to that overview.
And I'll definitely need people to raise their digital hand so that you go up to the top of my screen for me. Thank you. Commissioner Chavez.
Yes, thank you everyone who worked on this. That's a lot of work and it's good. It's good work. I do have a couple of questions. On the state accountability system, Glenna, I think I saw on there, yeah, right there. I think I saw percentile, the percentile ranks. And I thought our state accountability system was not based on percentile rank, since it's not a norm referenced test, it's a criterion reference test. And so I'm not sure that that's, well, or maybe I'm not understanding. So could you like explain that?
Yeah, so I think this is referencing the ranking of all the schools in the state, Secretary Chavez. So you know how they basically take them after, once they make the vistas and they align them all from most points to least points. That's where, and then you get the TSI, CSI schools in the bottom 25%.
Yeah.
That's that ranking. It's after it's been designated by the state. If they're in the top 50% of all schools in the state, then they would be green. Yeah.
Okay,
that's
got
the
it. Okay,
But you're
I thought it was
correct as
referring.
well. Yeah, no,
I thought I
you're
was referring
right.
to the percentile, the percentages on the being a criterion reference proficiency rates.
No.
Okay, good, good, good. Okay, the second one that I have is on the student groups. I don't know what section that was, but I just want to make sure that for the student groups, you're talking about the subgroups, but in that subgroups is the EL subgroup also taken in consideration?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Chavez, do you think in that state accountability that we have the verbiage correctly stated? Going back to that, do you think that would be clear to other school leaders?
Sorry, I hit my mute button. Yeah, I think so. If you could clarify just a little bit more. But it does talk about the state report card. I didn't catch that earlier. So I don't know. Maybe just a little bit of a clarification, but no,
Yeah.
I think once you explained it, I knew exactly what you were talking about.
Okay, that might be something we want to look at. Well, we meet tomorrow, so we'll take that feedback to our project team tomorrow and maybe add some more verbiage that clarifies that better. Okay, super, but thanks for that, for asking that.
The attendees who's raised their hand. Explore Academy, I've allowed you to speak.
Sorry, it's Karen Warner. I didn't realize I was in the generic Explore Academy account for Zoom when I logged in. Hi, everybody, Madam Chair, Commissioners. It's Karen Warner from Explore Academy. I just have a couple of questions. I really like overall this new options, but I do have a few questions. One is on the first indicator where we get 3 options. I understand that
real quick, I'm sorry. Can we, real quick, excuse me. Chair Burt, do we want to let the commissioners provide feedback and questions first? Because we are presenting this to schools in December. I wanted the commissioners to get this is a presentation.
Yeah, I mean, there weren't any commissioners having their hands up, so I felt okay about it, but we can definitely go. I'm okay with taking this and then we'll keep going. Hopefully maybe it'll start getting commissioners into commenting as well. But I didn't see any commissioners.
Thanks, Karen.
So go ahead, Karen.
No worries. I'm happy to wait as well. I just have a couple of questions, but thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So on the 1A, the state accountability system, I understand that option 1 is to like leave it with the state to score, if you will, the tiers or percentages. The second, I'm having trouble with my mouse, so I can't scroll around. Hold on 1 second. The second one, I see. Okay. The third one has I want to know how the percentage will be calculated on the third option. Like if a school decided to use some other norm reference test, like their interim assessments, I presume is perhaps an option here. How would you determine, how is that scale going to work to determine the points?
I think a lot of that's going to be coming from the school. So if the school is going to have to bring forward the data and it's going to be negotiated, it's a performance scale. And so a lot of that would be coming from the school. If they're,
I see.
If they're choosing that option, they're going to have to bring forward the data and the reliability and demonstrate how, and with evidence, how that's going to be rigorous.
So this will be similar to what we've been doing with mission goals as an example. That the school proposes the, my only question there would be ensuring, my caution would be ensuring true rigor. And I've seen some mission goals that have been approved that frankly were not very rigorous. So just would caution the PEC commissioners on that, but I understand now. My next question was on section 1B for the special student groups, and I see that all the groups are listed, including, as Commissioner Chavez said, the English language learners. So I assume it would be, as I read this, it would be any subgroup that any school has that has 20 or more students in that subgroup. Is that correct? So for small charter schools who never have more than 20, you won't be providing any growth measures for those students or any review. Correct?
Yeah, right now that's the in size we were told it is too small to be able to put it out publicly. And this has to be a public document.
Correct. I would propose, oh, I see. Okay, interesting, because it's true that the N size has to be large enough for it to be statistically reliable, because the school accountability system goes from 1 year to the next, so it's not even the same group of students. However, I would propose that, and I don't know about the public piece, but option 3 could be on a year long, so it's the same kids getting the pre and post test within the same year, which would give really true picture of whether it's 20 or 5. If you were looking at the actual students from beginning of year to end of year for your subgroups, instead of from last year to this year, I think it would be more reliable. I'm not sure how that could be reported without being identifiable, but I think if you don't report publicly the individual students, but rather the score from those individual students, you could incorporate that. And I think that schools do a good or bad job of helping kids grow within a year, but using last year's data to this year's could hurt or help a school just because of the population last year or this year, as opposed to actually tracking those same kids for the school year. Just a thought on option 3. And just to clarify, 2A1 on the mission goals, that's the same as we're doing now, correct? Okay.
Yeah, except for it's changing it into the RBA instead of the SMART goal. And it's 1 instead of 2.
Okay, we had an option of 2, now it's 1.
Yes.
What if 1 doesn't accommodate all the grade levels of a school? I just thinking of that because, as you know, Explore Academy Rio Rancho, we wanted to do 1 for elementary and 1 for secondary, and they look quite different. I guess it wouldn't matter if you met.
We can talk about that.
And then on the fidelity, just clarifying, this would be done through site visits or other documentation requested, or how is the fidelity of the education program to be evaluated? I assume that's site visits and documents requested. Okay.
Yep, that would be a CSD function for sure.
I haven't really looked at the re-enrollment piece yet, but how does that compare to what we had before in terms of recurrent? This is re-enrollment from 1 year to the next.
Right.
And it would be percentages based on the bands. So you would have to have 85% of K5, 85% of 6 to 8, 85% of 9 to 12. I'm gonna caution there too that it is difficult. I have to do the math to figure out if this could present a problem for schools, but as you all know, there is a drop off of students, particularly at the 9th grade level, or shortly after 9th grade, because of other reasons. Not that the school was necessarily doing a poor job, but maybe they want band, and they don't want to just participate as a charter school at the district, or sports or things like that. And so I would ask that you consider that may impact, and I haven't really thought this all through, but may impact re-enrollment at some points. And
yeah, and you'll notice the band starts from 9 to 12. It doesn't go 7 to 10, you know? So there's that break for ninth grade. It's not sequential from 8 to 9. So there's that break in the band.
Right, but that means that your 6 to 8 group coming back the next year.
Right.
I don't know how you're gonna do it, but
So anyway, so yeah, there's a break so that we're not looking at 8th to 9th, in other words.
well, you are because K to 5 would be coming back the next year in grades 1 through 6. Right, and 6 through 8 would be coming back in 7 through 9. And
I
9
understand. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Karen, and you provided some really great feedback. But I'm just thinking that, 9 through 12 is if there's a break. There's a break, because we talked about exactly what you just said. So thanks again for reiterating that.
Yeah, I don't understand how it's
Well,
accommodated,
so
but
if I may, I think we're looking at those groups as like cohorts, right? So K through 5 is analyzed separately from 6 through 8.
Right,
So if there's a drop
exactly.
in 5, between 5 and 6,
Yep.
then that's accommodated for.
Right, exactly.
But you're right. I think with ninth grade, like 9th grade to 10th grade, that's not it. That is something a school would be impacted by in this format. The conversion from 8th graders to 9th graders is not, because for that example, like, students may be in 8th grade and be like, you know what, actually, I want to go to high school somewhere else. And that's not, it may be outside of the school's control. But you're right. If it's like a 10th grader who went to high school in a charter school and was like, oh, this isn't for me, that is going to be calculated in the high school re-enrollment rate.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, Patty's hand is up.
But I think we made that adjustment because we had robust conversations about this. That 85% kind of makes that adjustment as well, that we're not asking for a 90 or a 95% re-enrollment. That 85% to be in the green, I think accommodates those potential students that are going to drop off at those natural breaks.
Yeah. Anything else, Karen?
Did we lose her?
I don't know.
I removed, there you go.
I got
She was
muted. So, thank you, Commissioner Gibson. I appreciate that because that helps a little bit, me understand a little bit, but I'm still confused. And so I think others would be too. If I'm this year's K to 5 group, is that what you're looking at next year? Or are you looking at the K to 5 group next year, which was preschool to grade 4 this year? And if it's preschool, then you don't count that one. It would be
We're not
grades
looking
1
at
through 6.
preschool. Yeah, we wouldn't.
Right, so
They'd be,
so you would-
it'd basically be the 1st to 5th graders each year.
So let's take Explore Academy in Albuquerque. They currently have K to 5 students this year that we hope will all come back next year. So next year, you're looking at the 1st through 5. And then the 5th graders will be considered in the 6 to 8 window.
Yep.
And the 8th
If you
graders,
lose some of your 5th graders between 5th to 6th, that would not count against you.
how is that possible?
Because we're expecting that they may make a different middle school choice.
Well, then you would have to look at the next grade band would have to be 7 to 8, not 6 to 8, because the only 6th graders you'll have are new kids or kids who matriculated up.
Well, I think it'd be the 6th graders moving to 7th grade, 7th graders moving to 8th grade, which is why we put 6 to 8.
So you would, okay, so you would be looking though each year at 1st through 5th, 7th and 8th, and 10th through 12th.
Basically.
It's not clear from how it's written is all my feedback would be.
Okay. We can take a look at that.
And so far, I think that's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Karen.
Commissioner Chavez?
I just want to say, boy, Karen's experience really comes out in some of that. So thanks, Karen, for that input. But I do want to bring up something that she talked about for early on, and that is on that option 3. And I think Karen makes a great suggestion to make that pre and post type situation, and also the concern about schools coming up with their own targets or their own measure of rigor could be something that we need to look at. And so I would say that there needs to be some type of, whatever tool they use for option 3, that there needs to be some type of crosswalk that is that brings together like some type of measure that could explain, why certain kids at certain levels are proficient or not proficient or nearing or not, or whatever, whatever the measure is, whatever it is that they're looking for. I think there needs to be some type of crosswalk between whatever tool is there or explanation, and how that translates over to what we're talking about here. So what constitutes a green, a yellow, and a red, that sort of thing, using that crosswalk of the other thing is the concern about, the 20 plus and not being a statistical group if you have less than 20. But, we've also got FERPA that we've got to consider on that. And so that's, but as far as them being not evaluated or anything like that, they get caught in the whole school performance. And so it's not like they're being left out. They're just being included as part of the whole school. And so I just wanted to make that clarification.
Thanks, Commissioner Taylor.
Thank you. Going back to option 3, I think you guys have done clarified things pretty well as far as, any kind of evaluation system that the school wants to use as far as rigor, because it has to be approved by the PED. So the PED is going to approve that prior to them implementing that evaluation system. And the assessments have to be approved by the PEC. So to me, that's fairly clear. We're not as a group not going to approve a method for assessment that doesn't have rigor or doesn't follow close enough with the state guidelines. So, I think that's fairly clear.
Thanks.
One thing I did notice, which I know I'm a part of the project group, but I'm still going to say it now because I saw it, is I know so these PED approved assessments are listed out. We have them here as a footnote. And I'm actually thinking that instead of having them as a footnote, we probably should just have a link to the website, because if the PED ever updates these, then we have to go back and update, and we're trying to get away from that. So that was one thing that I kind of thought about after we listed them all out here is, a PED approved assessment might change before we change our performance framework again. And actually, I'm knocking on wood that is the case, that this performance framework stays for quite some time. And so we need to make sure that we're not putting things that are super specific in here that need to then get updated or become outdated quickly.
Yep, thanks. That's a good idea.
So, Commissioner Taylor, do you have another comment? Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure before I was like, I don't know if I saw you put your hand down and back up again or if it stayed up. So I always feel bad. I do know we also asked Miss Barnes to go ahead and take a look at it from a legal perspective. And first we just asked her, hey, just look and tell us if there's any egregiously illegal things that we did in here, anything that's completely not supported by or adverse to statute. So she did do that. We actually updated the statute at the top is actually based off of a recommendation from her. But other than that, there's some little suggestions that Julia has, I'm thinking would be a great time. I don't know, project team, if you think this is a good time, like just kind of have Julia, if I could pass it over to you and you just kind of go through, walk through these pieces and like with your suggestions for us to be able to consider of whether or not that, if we like them or not.
Did Karen have another comment?
Hand was up again.
Or I can,
I do, but I can wait, certainly.
you want me to go now? Chair?
Sorry, yeah, it kicked me out again. I think I tried to do too many buttons. Do you want to share your screen? Or do you want me to keep doing, or do you want to share what you have? Would that be easier? I'm open.
I can share my screen, or I can just walk you through.
Okay.
Mine, I'm trying.
I'll go ahead and I'll share my screen again, Julie, and you just walk through. I'll start at the top.
Okay. And what I was trying to do is put my mind to someone is, you know, we're trying to use it, and is it clear? So on page 1, I know that Karina's already identified about the statutory renewal requirements. I actually want to not put in the statutory renewal requirements. What I want to do is put in what the performance framework is supposed to do, so that this document has one purpose, which is clarity around the performance framework. There's 5 grounds for non-renewal, and one of them can be the performance framework. But what we've done, I think, on a lot of the documents we're trying to pull apart is, what is this performance framework and exactly how are the schools supposed to use it? And then the first one, if you go up just a little bit, that 22.8B9, that's, and it should be up a little bit more. Maybe it didn't make it in. I think it did. So that 22.8B9, that is basically the overarching piece that to me kind of says the performance framework needs to be clear and clearly understood and then annually monitored. So a lot of my comments are kind of around clarity. I think you can do any of these things that you want to do, but I think we need to make sure that we've gone full circle on a lot of them. Somewhat similar to what Karen was just saying, make sure that the language is super clear, maybe identifying that K is the baseline year and 6 is the baseline year and the recurrent enrollment is the next, so that it, no matter who picks it up or which new head administrator does it, it's clear. So I have pretty many of those type of comments, but I want to say first, I think that they can all be clarified. So just the first thing is I just wanted it to be to the performance framework only, and that this would comply with it. The 7 under 9B1, those 7 component parts have to be in this performance framework. And if a school drafts their own, if you use the state accountability system, you already are getting all 7, basically, except for recurrent enrollment right now, which you don't look at. And in this one, you really lift it up. So I just want to make sure that's what you want to do. But if a school wants to provide their own, we had a school that did that last year, we walked one by one and made sure that they did it, and actually made different decisions on different ones of these. So I'm not positive that the language is quite clear enough, but it's only a language issue when you let a school do their own. There is a requirement about this disaggregation of data. I am wanting to test that you can get the answers you want on that growth data. I'm not quite sure that I understand exactly what you're intending. And I just know right now that you have indicators that you cannot score. And I'm wanting to make sure, and I'd really like Karina to test with Matt that you can do that.
Julia, pardon for the interruption, but this year there is no growth data because it's a baseline year. That changes with the results that come out of this school year 22-23, right? So I
Right.
know that we are like gun shy on growth data because we haven't seen it for a while, because this is baseline on the new statewide assessments. But after this year, we will have growth data available.
Right, so I just in my mind have been playing devil's advocate. So we've always had statewide assessments. It changes a lot. What people assume is going to be there doesn't end up being there. I just want to make sure that it's going to work. Because we've had statewide testing for many years, and this year we can't score it.
Because we
Last
had
year.
2 years of no statewide assessments due to the pandemic, which
When we went from A through F to a new system, you know, if I'm gonna feel better if someone can run some of these and just show them to me. Is this the level that you want, Chair, or do you want me to? Okay, so
Their project team people, we're writing down stuff so we can go and talk about it tomorrow. So if there's
yeah, and
things that we
I
can-
have notes I can give you that just for you to consider, so.
But I do want other commissioners, like if there's something that is being suggested and other commissioners like, oh yeah, I definitely want that to be different, or I want to keep it how it already is. That's really useful information for us today so that we can, because we're actually going to meet tomorrow, take whatever suggestions commissioners have, like if we can get kind of consensus ideas today, we will go and change this tomorrow. And then that will be the draft that we're going to distribute to schools, that we're going to be giving to school leaders, we're going to be sending out to everyone to start getting real feedback on. So we do want as much information today because I don't want to change it after tomorrow until we get a lot of feedback from all the schools.
Okay. On page 2, part 1, at the top.
Are you talking about for me, page 2 is the performance framework statute. Should I be going down?
Part 1 right there. Okay.
Okay, great.
So it's not just right there. The CSD is dedicated. First, this is a PEC document. So at minimum, it should be both or arguably PEC. So that's just a languaging issue. Where it says the first step will be to negotiate with the PEC to create your charter goals. This is the only place in the document that it looks like instructions to a specific school. So I think the language should be more generic, like the school and PEC will negotiate the performance framework indicators and include them in the performance framework for the school. It's just that language. That's the only sentence anywhere that's kind of an instruction to the school. Then right below that chart, it says the ratings will be given solely based on data provided by CSD or the school. I actually don't think that's correct. You're using statewide data. You know, they particularly on like the organizational framework, you may get something from PED. And from a lawyer's perspective, I don't like the word solely because then it it can be flipped on its head so that you couldn't do it. I would just strike that sentence. So here's an example. You say later on that you need to have minimum participation goals, like it has to be 95% in order for the data to be given to be valid. Well, we already know that there are some schools that don't have that data, that don't have that participation rate. So do they get a false far below if they don't have that participation rate? So that's an example where you've given like 1/2 of the equation, but you need to also say what you mean about the other half of the equation. And so if they don't provide the data, they fall far below, but what if they don't have the minimum participation? And I'm not sure that they should automatically fall far below, but it's just an example fairly often through here where you've done half, but you need to close the loop all the way. So I'm not sure that that's the correct answer, but you do need to answer that question.
Actually, is that something, commissioners? I don't know if we can get some support on, or what commissioners think is, if a school doesn't have 95% participation rate, what should happen? Like, I think we could pause for 1 second, see if commissioners, what do you think? Commissioner Robbins?
Well, I think it is a problem if they don't have 95%. However, there can be circumstances that would exacerbate a school's ability to do it. Weather, could be communication issues. I mean, we had a pandemic and, a lot of students didn't have access to internet. Internet can go out if they're meeting virtually or whatever. So there can be justified reasons for not meeting that. But, and a couple of years ago, APS actually sent out a flyer encouraging students to not participate in testing. So, I would not encourage or approve of any school doing that. Although, here you have the largest district doing that exact same thing, encourage them not to participate. But I think it is a good goal to have. I don't think a school, unless there is no justified reason, should be penalized, because that's like saying, well, we're going to punish the school because the parents don't bring their kids to school. I mean, if the schools can only control certain aspects of what's going on, encourage and things like that. And I don't think, if you only have 94, 93% participation, that invalidates any of the data that you get from that testing. It doesn't. I think it puts a mark. I wouldn't say a red mark, but it does put a mark by that school for not attaining proper participation. But it is a federal goal too. So, I mean, that's something we have to look at and weigh. If the school makes every effort to try to reach that 95% and they fail, that's one thing. But if the school is not even attempting or making efforts to attain that 95%, that to me would be an issue.
Commissioner Gibson?
I don't know. I don't know how you measure effort. That's part of my challenge, but that 95%, so this is part of the school agreeing to the state accountability system. That's part of the federal requirement through ESSER. So I just don't see, they have to meet that 95%. And I don't think we have the ability to change that, because that is a federal requirement. If they don't want to do that, they can pick up option 2 or option 3. But I don't know how you measure. We tried to get 95%. I know. I don't think it should be a challenge going forward. So I don't know how we change that.
Karina, what happens? I know back when there was like letter grades, if the school didn't meet the 95% threshold, they were like dropped a letter grade. So like if they got a B, they were under 95%, they got a C. Is there anything that the PED does now when a school doesn't reach is that addressed within the accountability system? Sorry, I don't know if it got my last part.
It didn't. I think I heard the first part, and you're asking, how does participation rate factor into the overall performance? And
that's what I'm wondering is, Is it counted as part of Vistas already? Because for me, if it's factored into it, then we don't need to worry about it on our side. If in essence, because it's already taken care of. So maybe we don't need to have that statement here to lead to confusion if there's something PED is doing to address it already.
Right. So, I do not know for sure. That's information I can bring to the table. I know that for this year's, well, actually for 21-22 school year, we looked at participation rate as an indicator that was a standalone indicator in the performance framework. And so the annual reports will have a school rating based on whether they participated in all of the testing that the state requires. And you saw some of that data on the renewal schools already. I can
I
find
guess-
out before tomorrow.
Okay, that'll be good to find out, because I feel like I understand the, if it's not addressed and the commission believes it is necessary to ensure that they have that 95% threshold and the PED is not, there's nothing in the accountability system that really does much with it other than just like say it, and we need to do something with it, then it probably does need to be just specific here as to, if you don't meet the 95% mark, you automatically receive, or like if you're a green, you get a yellow. If you're yellow, you get red. If you didn't meet that participation, like maybe you drop down a rating from wherever you ended up on Vistas, but then if you didn't get the 95% mark, you drop one level on our system. I don't know if that's even necessarily well thought out and fair right now, just saying that, but I don't know how else, or we just remove it. There needs to be something that we do with it, or it shouldn't be there.
Just close that loop either way.
Okay. We could talk about that tomorrow.
I will say that if PED already deals with it and it's a statewide thing, that's probably a good way to address it. Just they've already addressed it, so we don't have to address it. So that on those options, it does align with whatever PED is doing, but you can do it anyway. You just have to do it completely. This next, so if you go back up to the ratings. Okay, right in there. This first sentence, the school review process must provide them with information they need to act if the school is flagged for support or intervention. I am thinking a lot about making the school an equal partner in these contracts. Right now, it's very much PEC is telling you what to do, and here's this, and here's what you're supposed to do. I want to look at flipping some of that to the schools having an obligation to take control over issues that you identify for them. And I also think that this sentence is what you're going to do about the performance framework. And this is just the performance framework. So we'll do something about all of that in other ways. So I think you could strike that sentence and just leave it. Each school will receive an academic evaluation as follows, that this document is not just like we're not looking at non-renewal or conditions, that you're not addressing that in this document. So I would just put each school will receive, and then I think it's an overall academic evaluation. This is another example where you've got part in here, but not everything. So how you get the whole piece in here, it is for you to decide, but I don't think they're there. So I'm looking at this big box at the bottom. So green is for 1 year. Yellow is for 1 year. Red is for multiple years. So you have some missing pieces in here. So first, but I think it's fine for green to be for 1 year. I would put that for the school year assessed. Yellow is for the school year assessed, but does not meet the criteria for not on track. You got to make green, yellow, and red tie in completely together, and I think that they don't yet. And I'm not trying to tell you how to make them tie in. I just want to point out that there are gaps. So when are you going to get a red and when are you going to get a yellow? I think potentially you're going to get a yellow. And this is where I'm thinking someone's going to challenge what you've done. So I want it to be super clear. So you're going to get a yellow if you didn't get a red. You know, if you hit red, you're going to get red, I think is what you intend, but I'm not 100% sure. So I think you're going to need to say something in the yellow for the school year assessed, but does not meet the criteria for not on track for renewal. The not on track for renewal piece, I want you to strike the word consecutive, because first it's missing some. What about a school that ping pongs? Year number 1, I didn't meet, I didn't meet this criteria, but then the next year, but I did, and then the 3rd year I didn't, and then the 4th year I did, and then it's if they're ping ponging all around, you as a commission may say, that's not good for kids. We're not meeting what needs to happen for kids. So I don't want you to have tied your hands to consecutive years, because first, I don't know what happens. Do you just get a pass if you ping pong around? So one, it's missing some pieces. And 2, I don't want you to tie your hands. So I would like you to strike the word consecutive. And then you've got the phrase at the end, without improvement. I want you to strike without improvement. What does that mean? What are you talking about? The school's going to say they improved. You're going to say, no, you didn't. So I'm just not, that red one, there's a lot in there that makes me uncertain what you mean.
Yeah, thank you for pausing there. We'll go ahead and go to questions on this or comments on this. Commissioner Gibson?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on this because it's, we didn't want, you're not on track for renewal just because you didn't meet one particular year. So it became challenging to, well, how are schools clearer on when you're not on track for renewal? And it really can't be just one red thing. I have less concern about the years without improvement, because I think the annual report is going to be able to show whether they improved from 1 year to the next.
Well, if you mean one level, it's fine with me if it's green to yellow or yellow to green, but if you're in yellow and you made some improvement, what does that mean? So if the without improvement actually means going
that
from
you
yellow
moved up
that you moved up a whole thing, I think the ambiguity for me is, I was doing terribly and now I'm still doing terribly, but a little bit less terribly.
Listen, terribly.
What does that
I gotcha.
mean?
Okay, yeah. I see that it needs clarity, that you have to at least be you have to move up a level somehow.
And I don't mind if you also put another thing about a school that ping pongs around, but you don't even talk about a school that ping pongs around.
Right.
So if you were, and take an extreme, somebody does a great job 1 year and then they do a terrible job, envision a scenario out of 56 charter schools. You can envision any scenario. just you need more options here then. You haven't covered everything. Because now, if you have a school that ping pongs, you can only renew with conditions. That's your only choice. You've limited yourself in a way that I wish you wouldn't.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Rena?
Director Chavez?
Yeah, so, yeah, this is a lot more thorough review, and I know you've spent some time thinking about it. It'd be great for it to be all written down. I think you might have said you have that, which would be helpful, for us tomorrow, but I would say two things. One, directionality matters at a school, and, a school could be holding steady with no improvement or terrible performance, or they could be making improvements and then going back down. I think that what we are saying in that final box is that there is the accommodation for a ping pong. It's red, yellow, then red again, right? And that's the 3-year trend that would lead to not on track for renewal.
Well, you wouldn't be.
So it's not 2 consecutive years, but there is a does not meet, and then a working to meet, and then a does not meet. So in that case, it's not 2 consecutive years, but there was an improvement in the second year, and then the school went back down in the 3rd year so that there was a red. And I think that's what the team meant with that, but I think you're saying that's not super clear and it needs to be more clearly defined.
Well, and if I'm a lawyer for a school, the only way I can be not on track for renewal is if I have messed up 2 years or 3 years with does not meet or working to meet. That's the only way I can do it. And if I didn't fall into that criteria, we have drafted this. So you can't be in the red box unless I meet that. That makes me nervous that you have limited the not on track to renew, when you might want those options. So I just think this might be one of the ways you're not on track to renew. Pick something terrible. Every single one of their special ed students made no improvement at all. Just envision the worst case you can think of. And if it's not in that red box being narrow is going to work against you. Because I'm going to be a lawyer and I'm going to say, oh, not in that red box. I'm good. You have to renew me with conditions.
Director Chavez,
Yes,
any more? Okay, Commissioner Robbins?
Couldn't we put a disclaimer on it that this is a guide and does not restrict the commission from making a final judgment based upon the most current information available? Because obviously you can go through and it looks like everything's fine, then all of a sudden things fall apart totally in a week or two, and we have to take action to not renew or to revoke. It would seem that it's an indicator. It's not a definitive guide. In other words, it doesn't restrict the commission from making, or commissioners from making a judgment, but it is to give the school a guide.
To the not on track for renewal or sufficiently serious concerns, just some kind of general catch-all
Right.
that that closes the loop for me. That's a good way
Okay.
to do it.
Yeah, just to put it in, or present serious concerns for the commission.
Yeah, maybe we work on that language, but yes.
Right.
Commissioner Voigt?
You're on mute. Glenna?
Yeah, if you can forward us what you have written down in your notes so that we can have it for our project team meeting tomorrow.
Yes.
If you have anything written, that would be awesome.
Commissioner Gibson?
Sorry, I was writing down notes. And thanks for bringing that back up again, Commissioner Robbins, because we did talk about, a statement like that, so that whatever this is, it never ties the hands of a commission that we can't take a vote and do this. So I appreciate, because that, after going over this again, it doesn't appear anywhere. So it's important to bring that back. So thanks.
On the next sections, I think you can do any of these things that you want. I think like Commissioner Chavez has just raised like clarity of the 50th percentile. What does that mean? So that, it's really, really clear what you're intending and how that scoring is. Then on option 2, for example, and again, this is clarity. You've got 2 things here. You've got the overall state accountability and you have their own information below, but on the right side, it only talks about the second of the 2. So green is at or above national norms for proficiency in both reading and math. How does that, I just don't understand the math of how it ties in. So how does this work? Like, how is the state accountability and that supplemental growth? How are you, do you ring the bell one way or the other? So I'm just not quite, I think the idea is fine, but I'm not sure that there's clarity of that. Maybe I'm just not sure how it works. So I'm a kid, or this is a school up above and I'm above 50%. And then how does the supplemental growth get added in? So I would actually think it'd be a good idea to take a school and try to score it by what you mean and see if you can score it, because I'm not positive exactly what you mean. And then the third one maybe is okay. I just would like to see, because you've set a level at 70%, that green has to be 70%. I would just want to make sure that you can really, that it's drafted in a way that you can really score it. But maybe so. And then here's another one. Of the 95% of students, a lot of times, and that was true in the school that did their own indicators, they didn't score every kid. They scored 95% of students identified to be tested. So they're invalid, and then what happens? So it's that same kind of comment again. It's the what if it doesn't happen. So that's another place where that is. On 1B, maybe I just don't know enough about it. But I just worry about the clarity of exactly what the school is going to do. So you have kids that could be counted 2 or 3 times. Let's say that I was a low-income student who's Native American and I'm an English language learner, and I have a disability. Am I counted 4 times? How, and maybe that already works already in how these special student groups are done. And then gender, race, and ethnicity, you're going to get all the kids. So either you're female or male, you're some kind of race and some kind of ethnicity. So I don't know if that seems to be the whole world of the school again. And then does it change each year? And my question on this whole thing is, pick a school and try to score them right now this year. I just am worried about logistically how that's gonna work. Then on what my whole question all the way through this one is, I just don't know how, I just am not sure about the language and I'm not sure how it works. So I would want someone to actually score it and see, can you score it in a way that everyone would understand? And I think you can do what you want to do. I just am worried about the language. And does it change? I mean, and then what is a growth target for a Native American student? Is that set every year by PED? What if they don't set it? What is a goal for the girls in the school? Who sets that? Just how my whole question on B is, how would that work?
Can I pause it? Can I pause you there for a second? Because Commissioner Gibson has her hand up. Oh, no, you don't. Never mind. Okay.
Yeah, I
Well,
just didn't lower it, sorry.
The mission specific goal, I think it would be really good to have an example so that people understand that, but I think that is just a clarification thing. And maybe we've already been grappling with this, but there is the SEL survey and the Safe Environment survey. So this is one of 5. So it's very high stakes. And if a school chooses, maybe this is what Karen was saying, if a school chooses a safe environment survey as 1/5 of the high stakes decision, do you have enough of these other things in here? And maybe you do. And then at least one school did choose to have a high stakes decision for an SEL survey. There's also information out there that it shouldn't be used for that. So I just think that there's a little bit of it being very readily assessed for language acquisition, for example, versus how would you score a safe environment? And is that what you want? But maybe we've already been dealing with that. So maybe we're okay on that one. 2B, again, it's one of 5. So it's high stakes. What does fidelity mean? And who decides it? And how is it not just subjective? And I do agree that it would be CSD. But if you have different people at CSD, I think you would need to define that fairly clearly, because it's moving from one organizational framework out of like 20 to 1 of 5 high stakes decisions. And then I think that I urge you to look really carefully at the red, because if it's not being implemented, I mean, a school could make it so that they'd never get a red, but they could still be doing a terrible job. So I just urge you to look carefully at that and have it not be subjective, and have it, and you're going to have to define it elsewhere, somewhere. The last one on conducive learning culture. There are 7 elements that are required out of a performance framework. I'll tell you right now, you are not scoring recurring enrollment at all. It's the one of the elements that from when I was here 5 years ago to now just completely dropped off. And you're now choosing, which you can do, you absolutely can, but you're now elevating it to one of the most important ones. And is that, and then argue with yourself a little bit. And I think Karen already raised this. What if the reasons that kids are leaving your school, if I'm a really small school and I live right by Kirtland Air Force Base and students move because their parents are deployed somewhere else, are you gonna get a does not meet because that happened? And so just, you can do this one. And I think there's 2 questions. One, do you want to? And then the second thing is how does a school show that the recurrent enrollment was really related to their school? So it feels like you're going to get a lot of arguments on that one as to why that wasn't fair or this. And for a really small charter, that can be one family with 6 kids that moved away or moved back or moved away and moved back and moved away and moved back. That's that same thing that they could ping pong for a reason. And then the last thing I just want to say about that is those 7 elements that are required, academic performance, growth, achievement gaps, attendance, recurrent enrollment, post-secondary readiness, and graduation rates. A bunch of them are rolled into one. And then if you split one of them out, you really have heightened that one. And maybe you've got the right balance, and you well may, because you do have proficiency and growth. And so maybe you really do have a lot of academics. But we get arguments a lot that if you've rolled them all up into one, I'll give you the classic example, graduation rates. The lawyers tell me all the time, you can't non-renew a school for a graduation rate. I'm like, why ever not? It's one of these 7. It's a material term of the contract, but their argument is it's rolled up in a ball. You can't pull it back out individually. So I just want to think about that. And do you have the balance you want? So, the question I was asked earlier was, is there anything that is illegal? That's a bad word, but, that's really outrageous. No, I think that it's in here. It's really the put on the hat of a school arguing to not be closed. And then I think that just as written right now, there's a lot of holes that if I was a lawyer for a school, could you ever close a school? So it's just really language clarification. So I'm happy to send this to you. It looks kind of like there's a ton of comments, but they're all in the nature of this kind of idea to tighten it up. And frankly, tighten it up from if I wanted to close a school, could I?
All right. Commissioner Robbins?
Yes, I agree with what Ms. Barnes was saying in terms of this re-enrollment thing. APS, for example, 30% of students the school they start at, they finish at a different school that year. 30%. Because they have dual parents, because of moving, because of a variety of other reasons. But 30%, so you're going to get a significant number. It could trickle down to these charter schools where you don't get 85%. It has nothing to do with the quality of school or anything. It has simply to do with employment, the situation in the family, things like that. Nothing to do, transportation problems, things like that. So I think this is or can be very problematic if we put a great emphasis on re-enrollment.
All right, any other, Julia, is there any more? Is that,
No, I'll try to change this, like there. I don't want you to read too much in the comment I put to the right. I'm just trying to make the point for you to think about it. So
Okay.
I think you put in a tremendous amount of work and I think that it's very exciting and I'm just trying to make it be tight. So I don't want to send it to you and have you be like, "Oh, I have a headache."
no, I think it's good because I mean, we have been looking at this over and over and over and over. And sometimes what makes so much sense to us, because we've been looking at it week after week after week, when you give it to a fresh set of eyes, it, you know, it comes out that it's like, oh, that doesn't make as much sense as you all think it does. And so that's why we need to get it out, right? Like that's what we've been talking about. It's exactly what we need input for, because we think this is great and we understand all of it, but we've been working on it for an hour and a half every Tuesday for the last however many months. So no, I think those are the kind of like constructive criticism that's really, really needed right now today, so that we can go out with a little bit more clarity with this, a little bit tweaked of a draft based off of even just everyone's initial impressions that are on this call right now. That's exactly what we need it for. So I hope no one thinks that they need to apologize for being constructively criticizing what we've done, because I think that's what we needed. Yeah. Commissioner Voigt.
Yeah, thank you. No, I am so appreciative to hear this feedback. I mean, it really helps open things up in my brain. So yeah, thank you everybody for everything you've said.
All right, so I'll go back out. If there's anybody else that has any comments right now, we're happy to take them. I think also at this time, just so everyone knows, I mean, this is not this is the beginning of being able to like provide input. So we'll meet once again, we'll meet at our normal project time tomorrow to and go over kind of what we heard today, create an updated version of this that takes into account the comments that we heard. And then Director Chavez is going to work with her team to get that updated version posted online. And there'll be a survey link right underneath it. So everyone can go through, including commissioners. If you're like thinking about this next week and you're like, actually, I have this other idea. This is when you can start using that comment form and submitting comments again on this, on the draft. Commissioner Gibson?
Yeah, I think we have a little more time than that, because tomorrow we're not meeting with Naomi, we're meeting on the financial.
Yep, that's
So
right.
Yeah.
I'm texting with Naomi right now and can arrange for a follow-up time
Yeah.
to sit down with her and consider the feedback, because I do think that our goal was to get a nice draft out with the survey for everybody. And
Yeah,
so
it was, but
that it's,
I know it's the financial person we're meeting with tomorrow.
All right, great. Well, this is in your Google Drive, so you know, people can take a look through it, keep you know, look through it. And if there's anything that, if you're confused by it, that means other people will be confused by it. So don't hesitate to say like that something's confusing, because you know, if no matter how good our intent is, if it doesn't make sense to someone reading it, and you know, we're not going to be able to sit there and explain it to everybody one-to-one and give a presentation on this. So it needs to really speak for itself. So that's what we really need people's help on, is if there's confusing stuff in it, say it's confusing, because that means we need to clarify. If you like the intent, great. But if it's confusing, that's dangerous. I mean, we're not in a good space if it's confusing. So that's really good feedback for us to get. I don't see any other hands up. I also am sharing my screen and I can't see very many people, so I do apologize for that too. But usually if you have your hand up, it goes up to the top for me. But that is it for our agenda for today. So I think we'll go ahead. Once commissioners, you can start talking. If you run into school leaders, if you want to talk to them, start letting them know that this is coming, that we have a draft. We need to start getting feedback on it over this next month and a half, especially. We'll be presenting it at the Public Charter Schools in New Mexico conference. So the project team will for sure be there, but every other commissioner is welcome to come join us, get that feedback in person from people. So just be aware of that as well. And everyone's invited. But yeah, I think that's it for now. And then, yeah, Julia, if you'll just send that over to the project team, we'll be able to take a look at the actual notes and comments and take all that into consideration. And we really appreciate everyone going through this with us today. And I think we'll be ramping up and there'll be lots more to come. At probably every meeting we'll have something new at this point. All right. Well, I appreciate you all. I don't think I have to adjourn or anything. So I'll just see you at the next meeting. Thank you all. Have a good day. Bye.